California has too many grapes and too much wine. Ever wanted to be a Chianti Classico expert? Well, now you can be. And let's do the Sommelier Shuffle. It's like the Time Warp, only different. Just a step to the left, and then a hop to the right, something like that. All that and more on This Week Uncorked. See, I spared you the singing this week, so I figure that's all. Can't do that all the time. Anyway, hello and welcome to episode 18 of This Week Uncorked for Monday, November 18th, 2024. I'm Brett Martin from Cork and Journey, your number one source for corkage fees, winery reviews, wine reviews, and more. Let's get right into it with this week's wine news. The Wine Spectator has yet another report on the California wine crisis titled California Wine Crisis, Too Many Grapes. Basically, they're pointing out the same thing we've been talking about. Consumer spending is dropping, wine sales are declining, consumer spending is decreasing. There's an inventory overflow. So a lot of excess wine sitting around from previous years, which is causing a backup in the sales pipeline. And as we've talked about, a massive, massive surplus in grapes in the 2024 harvest. From the article, Turrentine is who they were talking to in this article, predicts the market will begin to recover in 2026 as supply and demand come into equilibrium. Meanwhile, consumers may start seeing some real deals as producers lower prices, reduce inventory, and take other cost-cutting actions. To some degree, it's going to be a benefit for consumers, at least in the short term. The oversupply situation means there's going to be a lot of affordable wine, high quality wine out there for the consumer. So good news for consumers, bad news for at least the next several years for California wine producers with the glut and the kind of decreased demand. It was just increasing for so many years, the 2, 3, 4% increases for, decades. And so they're always ramping up and basically making enough wine to meet that demand. And now that demand has kind of fizzled, plus there's too many grapes. And so that's the situation we're in now. Anyway, moving on with another story where demand was high. It turns out on election night, we're not going to talk politics here, but New York City liquor stores were crazy busy on election night with workers revealing a bizarre trend among customers. They would walk in and buy a bottle of champagne or a nice bottle of wine and then a bottle of spirits, and we're going to drink whichever one, however the election went that night. So things going well, I'm assuming it was just champagne and wine. Things going poorly, I'm guessing they were dipping into the spirits. So several customers selected champagne or a nice burgundy for those anticipating a celebratory mood. But wine represented most of the sales so far. Half the people were like, I got one bottle for bad news and I got one bottle for good news. So anyway, there you go. I don't know what you drank on election night. I just know it was a lot. Anyway, hey, quick plug for our buddy Rex Pickett over at rexpickettbook.com. If you don't know, he's the guy that wrote the book Sideways, which became the movie Sideways. And he's got his own online bookstore. He's written 4 books in that series. He will autograph them for you. He will autograph posters. He will write on the inside whatever you'd like. And with the code CORK10, you will get a 10% discount over at rexpickettbooks.com. So head on over, and if you love the movie, support Rex. And moving on with the news, this is really cool. So the producers in Chianti Classico have launched a free online course which could make you a Chianti Classico wine expert. So basically the region's producers got together. They're calling it the Chianti Classico Massive Online Open Course aimed at sommeliers, wine professionals, journalists, and just wine enthusiasts like us. You can sign up for the course, which is in 5 modules. It's a bunch of videos. At the end, you take a little test, you pass the test, and you will get your official certificate of Consori Vino e Olio Chianti Classico, which I imagine translates into a Chianti Classico expert. So head on over. The link is in the show notes. The link is in the newsletter. Head on over and check that out and get your Chianti Classico on. And wrapping up the news, the Rob Report has got a hysterical article about we're tired of sommeliers upselling us. And I don't know how many times this has happened, but you go and you open a wine list, and if you know wine, I think if you're watching the show, most of you do, and you're kind of scrolling through and you're looking for a bottle with 2, 3, 4x markups in some of these bottles. You're like, where's my deal gonna be? So there's an article about it. They scanned down. They found basically, 3 bottles of Village wines that were in the $100 to $150 range. And they're like, okay, whites, which one's going to go with our oysters? And they asked the Somm, and he scrolls down the page and chooses a $500 bottle. Constant upsell. This is not the case all the time, but it does happen a bit too much. I've seen this sometimes, not a lot. Oftentimes I go in Somms are really, really great, especially if you give them a price range. Like, hey, what's your best bottle of wine in this range? That's one way to tackle it, and sometimes a little better than just asking them, because, especially if you're at a nice Michelin star restaurant, they're assuming you got the money. So they're going to try to push that massive, massive bottle of wine on you. I will tell you, this does bring up an interesting topic for me, and I'd love to hear from you guys. But when going to a restaurant where they're doing pairings, I have found lately, especially at the Michelin star restaurants, that the pairings are not, the juice is not worth the squeeze, literally. They're basically selling you a pairing for anywhere from, it can be ridiculous. We were just at a single thread, and it was $300, $500, $1,500, or somewhere in that range, but it was $1,500 for the top end. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so one of the members at our table actually ordered that. Most of us ordered that mid-range. And man, did we feel ripped off at the end of the day. And we actually passed the glasses around, just to see, hey, what are you getting here that's, that much more significant? There just wasn't that much of a difference. As a matter of fact, sometimes we preferred the lower price pairing over the higher price pairing. But at the same time, we looked at it, there were 6 of us. And so you had $2,500 to $500 pairing, and you had $1,500. You had $4,000 was spent on wines doing the pairings. We could order any wines we wanted. We could order the best wines. We knew the wines. We could have just ordered a couple whites to start, moved on to some maybe Pinot, finished with some reds. Anyway, and I've noticed this experience has been happening a lot. And I'm thinking you're better off just going by the bottle. Corkage fees are usually ridiculous at Michelin star restaurants. They're usually $200. But even if you're going to find another place that's not Michelin star, it's got a reasonable $50 corkage fee. I think you're better off bringing in your own 2 bottles, or just buying bottles off the list than some of the pairings that are out there right now. That's not always the rule. I think there are exceptions to the rules where it really makes sense and the pairings are amazing and you get a lot of bang for your buck. But I haven't found that to be the case lately. So, hey, Somms, make those pairings give us a little more bang for our buck. And with that, let's head over to our wine and winery of the week. All right, we're going to head to Carmel Valley to the I Brand and Family Wines Tasting Room. This is one of my favorite producers. Ian Brand is the I and I brand, and he basically makes some amazing wines, not just for himself, but for other people. Rapidly moving up the ranks as one of the top winemakers. Anyway, this is in Carmel Valley, so if you're down at Carmel by the Sea, you kind of wind up by, I want to say, half an hour maybe up into the hills, and there's a bunch of little tasting rooms up there. There's some vineyards. This was one of our favorites. The Romby tasting room was also exceptional. I don't know if we've talked about that in the past, but we do have a review of it over at Cork and Journey. But Ian Brand, I Brand Family of Wines. If you're watching us on the YouTube there and you saw me carrying out a case, this is the last bottle we have left from that. So it was really fantastic and well worth the trip. So you're up in Carmel Valley, make sure you stop by I Brand Tasting Room. You will enjoy it. And with that, our wine of the week is the 2019 Mesa del Sol Prima Rossi. We gave it 91 points, and guess what? It was made by Ian Brand. Just a fantastic, it's in Monterey County's Arroyo Seco AVA, just really, really, really nice wine. It's kind of got a different experience to it. I mean, it's just a lovely little wine, and I recommend you give it a shot if you can find it. If you're up there, I believe we picked it up at a tasting room in Monterey County as we were making our way down to Carmel and then on over up into there. But we're checking it out if you get a chance. And with that, let's move on to our restaurant and Corkage of the week. All right, let's move to Paso Robles in California. And if you're in Paso Robles, in downtown Paso Robles, you will find a restaurant called Fish Gaucho. Fantastic restaurant. It has got two things going for it: amazing seafood and amazing Mexican food. You're spending a day, maybe if you're just doing the tasting rooms at downtown Paso, stop in there. If you've been out driving around hitting the wineries, this is definitely a place you want to stop into when you are in Paso Robles. Absolutely wonderful ambiance, amazing service. The food was just top notch. I mean, really, really good. Just kind of, we stumbled in, and you never know what you're going to get in a place like that. But this one, highly, highly recommend it. And to top it all off, their corkage fee is only $15 a bottle, and they don't have a limit on how many bottles you can bring in. So if you're in with a large group, bring 3 bottles in and enjoy yourself. All right, everybody, that is going to wrap up yet another edition of This Week Uncorked, brought to you by Cork and Journey. I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on social media, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.